Yeah, as we're recording early Wednesday morning, we have one other portal addition to Devon Mitchell and Michael Patterson McDonald. We'll discuss that coming up next. But imagine there are going to be several more portal entries for Oklahoma over the next few days. We'll discuss those as they happen here on Locked On Sooners. But we're going to talk about that next portal entry, I should say, in Sam Franklin coming up next and what it means for Oklahoma Sooners here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. In the third segment, we're going to talk Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter having their numbers retired by Colorado and how that would work at Oklahoma. Just an interesting, fun discussion. But Sam Franklin enters the transfer portal, Jay. It's not too terribly surprising. He came to Oklahoma last year as a veteran option in the running back room, but never really seemed to get a lot of run at running back. He was a primary kick returner for the Sooners, but now with the Jaydn Ott addition in particular, Sam Franklin kind of becomes a casualty of roster limitations.
Yeah, it's a combination of that and just now play. That depth chart is getting a little bit thicker. Think about it this way. You know, Xavier Robinson has emerged as a big-time player. Taylor Tatum is still there, but I think Xavier Robinson has put himself in front of Taylor Tatum today. Gavin Sawchuk has gotten stronger, and it looks like he's about ready to emerge here in the SEC after a very injury-plagued last year. Javonte Barnes is still hurt, but at the same time, he showed as your hardest-working runner on the team. So he put in the most effort, and I think he'll be able to get back on the field a little bit more. And then you add Jaydn Ott and then Torrey Blaylock on top of that, a true freshman who we've been hearing very good words about him as a dynamic playmaking running back. And he's also already sizey at like 6 foot, 200 pounds. So your room's getting a little thick. And Sam Franklin was brought in as a veteran presence to kind of help because the running back room was young. It was mainly X-Rob. It was, Taylor Tatum and Andy Bass, who is just coming off injury. And, with Barnes and Sawchuk dealing with injuries, you kind of needed one more back just to kind of help solidify that room. And hopefully he was going to be able to put up the numbers he did at Tennessee Martin. And it just never worked out for him, unfortunately. It drop passes, some fumbles. The mistakes were a little too glaring for him in that situation, but I think he still has the opportunity to be something. And I think once he hits the portal, a team's going to pick him up. He'll probably end up at he'll potentially end up at a P4 or G5 school, and I think he'll do a really good job somewhere else. It just did not work out here. It'll be outside of SEC because of it being the spring window, but he deserves the opportunity to go out and play and have an opportunity to do something, and I think he'll be able to do it.
Yeah, he certainly has the ability to be productive. You don't do what you did at Tennessee Martin without having some kind of ability. It's just he wasn't able to get on the field consistently for Oklahoma. When he was on the field, he made some good things happen. He ran hard. He ran quick. So, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield. So an intriguing thing. I think one thing you mentioned in the first segment that I want to bring back up is the addition of Jaydn Ott. It doesn't do anything to your young running backs. It doesn't change the situation for Xavier Robinson, for Torrey Blaylock, for Taylor Tatum. Now, it wouldn't be surprising if you saw one of those guys enter the portal just because, hey, this is the new era of college football. You're going to see transition. You're going to see guys into the portal that were blue chip prospects high on your radar that you had big plans for. That's just the reality of the situation. But you still feel really good about Xavier Robinson and Torrey Blaylock being here, Taylor Tatum. We'll see what happens there. You're seeing some buzz that could go a different direction with Tatum. But with Jaydn Ott, with only 1 year of eligibility left, you can continue to build your running back room and not have to worry about, oh man, these guys are going to get discouraged sitting behind a veteran, sitting behind a guy who's probably going to get a large majority of the carries, or sitting behind, another couple veterans in Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk who are going to eat up all those carries. You can just continue to work and develop and get better, and then look to, this year getting some run, but then 2026 being the year that you actually get to lead the running back room.
Yeah, big key thing is we need more veterans out there. And like you said, Sam Franklin's putting up some numbers before in his career, and he should be able to still do something similar somewhere else. And I believe he will. Now for Oklahoma, the biggest thing is, John, are we going to see some more casualties? I think we're going to see probably one more player hit the portal. I'm not sure who that could be, possibly two, because that room now, Jim Nagy has shown us that he means business. This is no longer a game. He's not playing, play at your mama, don't play with him, because he is over here really making some adjustments in this locker room and in this roster that we have been hoping for. All of us have wanted our team to focus on getting some of the best players possible, and it looks like that's what Nagy's doing. And this is honestly showing you his greatness, and we'll dive even deeper into Nagy as to why this was such a freaking genius hire, because he was able to identify this player quickly with Jaydn Ott. And it's funny because, we talked about this yesterday, but he tweeted about him for the Senior Bowl last year.
Back in
before
July.
he would get this job. Yeah. He already knew.
He knew.
He saw how dynamic he is. And now his scouting prowess is going to be able to do the same thing for some other positions. So I know that the losing Franklin, you losing depth is typically is always looked at as a bad thing in my personal opinion. Not like horrible though. I don't think that this hinders us in any way. But I know that we'll see, like I said, a couple more that'll enter the portal also, and we'll get to start, next year pretty fresh. And honestly, it's kind of refreshing and exciting to see that.
Well, and they're not done yet either. They're going to continue to attack the portal. Pete Nakos of On3 mentioned that tight end is probably going to be up next for Oklahoma as far as portal pursuits. And we've heard some really positive things out of the Oklahoma Sooners tight end room. At the same time, it was kind of starting off at a low place, right? It's probably been years since Oklahoma's tight end position was considered with such little confidence as maybe Oklahoma's tight end position was going into spring ball. Now, guys like Will Huggins and Carson Kent and Jaron Kanek have created a little bit of buzz, but Oklahoma can still afford to upgrade at that position, right?
Yep. They can. They can afford to. And I mean, there's a few spots that we talked about that needs to have some additional pieces. It's funny because even Max Olson over there that covers college football in the transfer portal for ESPN has said the same thing. He said he tweeted out bold prediction: Oklahoma is going to score more than 24 points per game this year, and with us landing 2 priority players, they're definitely not done. So it sounds like everybody has an idea that Oklahoma is going to be doing a lot more stuff. And that, to me, puts a big time smile on my face.
Yeah, and they can and will add several more players on the offensive side of the ball. It wouldn't surprise me to see them add 1 or 2 on defense. I feel like the defensive side is a little bit more solidified at the defensive line spots, linebacker, safety, but there are some intriguing edge prospects that are in the portal now. There are some intriguing linebackers in safeties as well. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them continue to try and bolster those groups, even though they do have good talent and they have good depth. They're not going to sleep on anybody. But cornerback is probably the spot where we feel like Oklahoma can really look to add a veteran presence to go with all those young guys. But Oklahoma's going to be aggressive. Jim Nagy said it last week. Brent Venables echoed it after the Crimson Combine. They're looking to add everywhere. Kicker is a place that probably needs an infusion of talent. And because we didn't really get to see that in the spring game, and it's one of those positions that you don't really talk much about, but everything that you're hearing from the insiders, from people that were at practice, from people at the Crimson Combine, is kicker is a problem. So I would not expect them to go into fall camp with the kicking situation where it's at right now.
Yeah, that's one position that we don't talk a lot about in special teams, and that room is very young. And unfortunately, it does not, like I say, it doesn't look like it's really shaping up to be what we need to go into the year. But we'll see. I'll put it this way. I mean, Crimson Combine, it did not look that great, while at the same time, I don't know what that looks like in actual game situation. We have a tendency of sometimes populating a decent kick game at the right time. But yeah, we're definitely going to have to go get another kicker, just to keep the competition going in that room. And let's hopefully one of those young legs show up. But John, yeah, I don't think I'm as worried about the special teams as I was years before, because I know that there's some legs. It's just now getting them fine tuned. You know, last year before last, I was really we were just missing field goals we shouldn't have missed. And in this situation, I think that hopefully the offense can do enough and the defense can do enough to where we're not relying on the foot too much.
Yeah, never kick. Hashtag never kick, and you don't have to worry about it. Just go score touchdowns, and you're fine. So don't settle for field goals. Go score touchdowns. Colorado is retiring some numbers for Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter after they just left Boulder. But that brings us to the question, which Oklahoma Sooners should have their numbers retired if Oklahoma were going to retire numbers? And I also have an interesting question for Jay. Is there an Oklahoma Sooner player that would have deserved to have their number retired immediately after leaving the program? We'll discuss all that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.